All right, hey, welcome into the live stream today. We're going to be jumping into not only the markets, but also take a look at what's happening with Apple's event and how this may be playing into some great opportunities, I think, that might play into AR, VR. And we'll break down a ton of tokens for you guys today, give you some insights to what we've been looking at, all that good stuff. You guys are going to love it. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back into Tech Path. Let's get into it. We've got a lot happening here. We will be taking some questions today. And we're going to be doing a poll as well, and we'll take a look at a whole bunch of tokens for you guys. I do want to thank our sponsor, that's iTrust Capital. If you guys are looking at long-term holding on crypto and you want to do it in an IRA, then this is one of the best places to do it. You can do crypto here. You can also get into gold, silver, all using your IRA. And there's a great way to do this either with a startup or even transferring your existing IRA. So it's very simple, easy steps, and they make it a super simple process. The one thing you can get, though, is a $100 funding reward, and that is something you can use or get by just using our link down below, so make sure and check that out. Always helps us out, and we'll go from there. Let's get into a couple of things here today, and I want to go over to, the first thing is, of course, the debt ceiling. We know that it has gone through the House and the Senate now, so the Senate passes the bill. There's a lot still to unpack over the weeks to come. I think we'll start to see some of the ramifications. Obviously, the president's desk needs to sign this, and once that happens, we'll see some pump. I think it is having a bit of an effect on Bitcoin and Ethereum. I'll show you some sentiment data and where Bitcoin and Ethereum could be going around that later in the show to kind of get into it. But I did want to break down what this might mean for markets in general. When you think about this is going to be short-term lived, in terms of slight bumps or maybe even some slight dips. What we're going to be seeing over the next few months is the effect of what this means. Balaji was tweeting about this. If the debt ceiling, which is now raised, Treasury can now borrow again, and that means borrowing a ton. Remember, we're at 34.23 trillion right now, and they're going to take us into a no-zone layer, I think. And the cool thing, or not cool thing, but they'd be borrowing a lot and they'd be doing it really almost all at once, trillions in treasuries. And then that it kind of sets up two things, all right, of where the money is going to be coming from. And this is something we've talked about before on the show here over the past few days, is liquidity could become a real challenge. I think it's more on the liquidity side, mainly because of the fact that these treasury bills are going to be hitting the market at over 5% in terms of yield. It's guaranteed yield. People are going to start moving liquid into that. When you start moving liquid into that from all these different coffers, the likelihood is we're going to see some sell-offs in securities and even in risk assets, including Bitcoin and even gold to a certain extent, going after those 5% yields. So the question will be is what kind of liquidity crunch does that really put on us in a short-term time frame? If you think about it from what, say, a Lynn Alden or other analysts are looking at, they see this as a major liquidity issue in the coming months, over the summer months, which again drives us into a problem, into a recession. So a lot of factors here that are in play. This is one of the most volatile times that markets face, is in these kind of scenarios right now where we're seeing the kind of these financial loopholes and hoops being jumped through in DC at the same time that we're having economic crisis playing into the market from a macro standpoint. Very few times that we've seen this in history. Balaji goes on to say the end game, yield curve control end game, in this context means the Fed will eventually just dispense with the artifice and the fund of government even more directly with just going into printing money. Now, this will be the factor of kind of a double dip in the sense of, all right, yield curve management is really going to play into how they are going to approach printing. Printing, of course, means now quantitative easing again. And that, of course, means money into the market. That brings back liquidity. The question is when that will occur, and timing will be everything. In the short term, the liquidity issue is going to be faced because of the spillover of treasuries into the market. So a lot happening here. He kind of hits on a few things here from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Fed itself admits that if the yield curve control specifically was pursued and the people understood what was happening, the Fed is engaged in deficit financing. It could cause potentially destabilizing outcomes. This is a pretty harsh statement, I think, coming in from the St. Louis Fed. So lot playing into this. The other factors on this are going to be other indicators. The one that is waffling both ways, and it's been very unusual, has been the jobs scenario. And this, of course, Squawk Box breaking. U.S. economy adds another 339,000 jobs, beating the 190. This goes back from the job differential that we're starting to see. And again, this is, I think, a scenario where we're seeing pent-up demand on this in certain markets, primarily hospitality, restaurants, hotels, lodging, etc., that are playing into this, still feeding into this market. And remember, a lot of this is because of the demand that is being entered into a strong economy. Even Biden talks about this a lot. And it's the scenario that's playing out of this is that so many retail consumers are and have been pushing against credit limits, their own credit limits, to be able to continue on this spend, which has been able to enable retail customer or retail businesses to be able to add more jobs. Jobs are not created on the fly saying, okay, we're going to be hiring someone new today. No, they're based on projections and historical. So, hey, we're growing this level. Let's continue to be able to deal with this because we can't be able to run our business without these kind of injection of new positions or jobs. This is where it gets really waffling of how this plays out in the future here. I think the door is getting ready to slam, and I think jobs will really start to see a big hit. Here was Nick Tamaros talking about this. May jobs shows labor demand remain very strong. Wage pressures have eased, meaning job wages are not raising, but jobs are from a year ago, and a big jump in U3. Difficult for the Fed, with most officials saying this report would be very important because it has a choose your narrative element to it. And that is a problem right now of how the Fed is going to respond to this really at the next FOMC. Here was Liz Abramowitz. She was talking about inflation has been more sticky now than the FOMC expected. Publishing after their last forecast in March, it argues, higher cost of capital for longer. This is the problem I see, is that the higher cost of capital. Remember, we're over 5%. We're going to stay here for a long time. That's harsh on businesses. It's harsh on industry, and it's harsh on segments. And eventually, things just start catching up to you. So just be aware of that. Let me kind of clear my throat there for a second. One thing I do want to hit on right here is Circle, of course, kind of distancing itself, USDC, from a potential US default. Not necessarily a thing now, but the fact that they were even considering going this direction was pretty stark, I thought. Fear and greed continues to hold right at neutral right now of where we're holding at 50-50. And I think this does indicate a lot of what we've seen in the market so far over the last couple of weeks. It's been, a lot of people have looked at it as there's been some buying opportunities, but not necessarily in the assets that you would typically talk about. And if you look at Bitcoin, let me jump over to Bitcoin because I was on that chart earlier right before the show. If you look at Bitcoin, I mean, here recently over this last, let's just go back, this is the daily, all the way back here to May 6th. And if you look at those red candles partialing through there, we had that nice little run here of almost 5 days, almost a week of green. But here we've had right there 4 daily closes on red. And if you've been following our sentiment data, this was predicated off of what we were seeing in sentiment charts also, pushing down, even though we were still getting a lot of people thinking that green candle back here on the 28th, Sunday, and Monday thought it was going to be an up candle. So again, we saw sentiment negative on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Only today have we started to see a little bit of a movement on sentiment. And if you go down to the 4-hour, we'll get in a little bit closer there. At least it's moving slightly up for Bitcoin. So be thinking about that as we start to look into the weekend. Fear and greed holding in there. Let's go over to this statement right here. Apple is the other scenario that's playing into this. Now the question is marking whether or not Apple could hit the $3 trillion mark. Now, what does this have to do with crypto? What does it have to do with investing as a whole? Where this paints out a thesis for anybody that is in innovation, think of it, our channel is an innovation technology channel. We focus on investing, tech, and crypto. And all of those things kind of blend together. And now Apple is kind of in this game now, whether they like it or not. There are things starting to develop that will associate with what's happening in the crypto space, especially in a lot of the tokens we're tracking in the AR/VR, power index. And I'll show you that as well. If you guys are new to our channel, you got a chance to see some of that maybe for the first time. But Apple could have trouble hitting this $3 trillion market cap. There's a few things that they're kind of hitting on right now. You won't find really a bigger stock than Apple, but its market cap $3 trillion early 2022. Yet as other stocks are also making their push toward $1 trillion market cap, Apple is dealing, remember we had Nvidia hitting this, dealing with headwind efforts to retrace its record run, and maybe it's on itself for kind of being in the position. I think it's all up to June 5th. Right now, June 5th happens. If Apple rolls out anything that is comparatively close to what Meta has done on the headset front, I think it takes Apple to an ozone layer, meaning we're going to see maybe even more activity on Apple and the future of what that might mean. If Apple can win with another device, remember they've got the iPhone win, the iPad win, the watch win, and what we've seen just in their innovation in software through the App Store. This could be the next wonder kid for them. So just be on the lookout. This I do not think is one to sleep on right now. Very symbolic right now. Right now it represents kind of the epicenter of investors when you think about tech and innovation. Though a lot of people haven't put a lot of innovation in Apple's camp for quite some time, but maybe this changes now. It's possible. We'll see. I mean, I think a lot of people have been hitting on that just because of the leadership and where Apple has been going over the historical period of time. If you look back at Apple's history, I'll play you a clip from Apple's history that might, maybe this will be a similar kind of event, but listen in.
Boom. That's iPod. I happen to have one right here in my pocket, matter of fact. There it is, right there.
Let's see this one. So obviously that's all you have to do. I mean, that was the showmanship of Steve Jobs. Maybe this is the era in which we're going to get a chance to see something like that again. Here was another drop from Mr. Jobs himself.
This problem. So how are we going to take this to a mobile device?
There's the BlackBerry. Oh, that's the Palm Trio.
What we're going to do is get rid of all these buttons and just make a giant screen. A giant screen. Now, how are we going to communicate this? We don't want to carry around a mouse, right? There. So what are we going to do? Oh, a stylus, right? We're going to use a stylus.
BlackBerry style.
No. Who wants a stylus?
I love it.
You have to get them and put them away and you lose them. Yuck. Nobody wants a stylus. So let's not use a stylus. We're going to use the best pointing device in the world. We're going to use a pointing device that we're all born with. We're born with 10 of them. We're going to use our fingers. We're going to touch this with our fingers. And we have invented a new technology called multi-touch.
Multi-touch, right there. Okay, so guys, this is an important thing. If you look back at the history of Apple and their ability, now granted, Tim Cook's a different kind of leader, not necessarily that visionary, but definitely a supply chain manager and, a good studious, person that kind of has held Apple through the ages of developing, growing iPhone sales up to 200 million worldwide. Can't beat that, but at the same time, you need innovation moving and leaping forward, especially when you have these technology leaps like the iPhone. When it dropped in 2007, that was a technology leap that literally changed everything in computing. It changed it all. It went to touchscreen and capacitive touch across laptops, pads, etc. It changed the interface. It changed the very society in how people use computing devices. Could we be facing the very same kind of thing on Monday? That's the question mark. Now, with that happening, and if it does, this is just reminding you, this is the great ascent of Apple. All great until really around 2015. That was its heyday of the iPhone. Since then, we have been pretty much sideways. Finally, Samsung, the Android platform, caught up enough to where it was equivalent as a phone and as a device. Now you have a head-to-head, and Apple needs another great white Pegasus. And I think this might be the play that could play them into a whole new era of adoption. Key two things that I'm watching right now is timing, and it's very unique. that Apple might be dropping this in a demographic that is in the middle of a flux right now. What I mean by that is millennial to Gen Z to Gen A. Alpha and Z could be the evolution of AR, VR going forward. Why is that important? Because millennial pretty much bought these billion iPhones over the last 10 years. That is what really moved it into the powerhouse that it is today. So I'm very intrigued with where this is going. The only problem is they've got one big competitor, and that, of course, is Meta. Meta came to the game. They've done something very interesting. They've dropped the Meta Quest 3. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. This is going to be another one. Now they've got another Meta Connect event happening at the end of September. This is very important because that's when, if you guys remember, when Meta announced in 2021 and really rode the wave of the crypto all-time high of almost every single asset in the marketplace, including Bitcoin, and every Meta token, VR, AR, all that was timed out perfectly. Question is, how does September play out, and whether or not Apple is foresighting what Meta could be launching right here. And don't forget, Meta is rolling out with games. They've got obviously Assassin's Creed on this. Ubisoft is tied into this. You look at the potential for NFTs. This is the smart cubes. We showed this before on our show. That, I think, is going to work its way into Meta at some point, and they're going to jump back into the NFT space. But at the same time, they're going to have to go head to head with where Apple's going. And this, to me, is going to be a very critical and key point for Apple. If they do drop something that is super sexy and capable, it doesn't have to be the end-all be-all, much like Watch wasn't when they first launched it. But it doesn't have to be the end-all be-all. What it could be is just good enough to give enough ahead of it. Now, the question will be is, how does this play out over the next few months? Because this is going to be very critical between now, June 5th, and September. September is going to be very critical because that's when Meta will launch its next device, or the awareness of its next device. So you can kind of see this right here. Apple has built a special hands-on area. This is another big factor that Apple has that a lot of companies don't have, and that is the fan engagement capability at Apple Park for AR, VR headset demos. And remember another thing, Apple has the largest, by far, developer community who's been building on iOS for over 2 decades. So that, to me, is huge in the opportunity of where we could see the conversion towards AR, VR in a very quick fashion. And they're probably going to be counting on this. This, of course, is showing developers already building within this ecosystem of what this might look like in the future. And I think productivity is going to play into this. This kind of just shows you some of the aspects of that. We're going to see gaming play into this. There's going to be entertainment rolling into this. A lot happening. Now, don't forget, we've had a lot happening around where AR, VR has been going for quite some time. If you look at this tweet here, this, of course, is just showing kind of the evolution of how Meta is potentially positioning here. And the question is going to be this. If you think about sales, and you can kind of see some of the sales here of the VRAR versus the target markets that they're going after, gross margin, etc. Very good gross margins on a lot of these things. But these headsets versus what Apple's going to doing is going to really drawing in the same thing that we look to in blockchain, and that is the developer community. So you have a developer community that's going to be starting to play into this. It's going to be very critical, much like when you have a developer community on Avalanche, Cardano, Solana. Devs, the project and blockchain that has the most and the best devs wins. Same kind of thing I think will be happening here. This is going to be another thing right here. Quest Pro 2 cannot be a toy next time. It would be sensible for them to wait until they can produce the Holocake 2. This is the Holocake 2 that they're talking about. Just to show you, let me zoom out on that a little bit here on what it means from a technology standpoint. This was the original refractive lens. If you think of the Oculus, this is where we are now. So a better, more engaged experience. You don't get as sick, more focused. This will be the Holocake technology that could be huge. This is critical for Apple because if Apple does not meet or exceed that level of technology, they could already be behind. So this is what I'm watching for on Monday, is to whether or not Apple is going to be able to do that. Just to show you what the VR market potentially could be here right now. If you had invested just in VR projects, you'd be up right now 13.3% on the year, okay? Or potentially, this is what you would be seeing over the years. And the beautiful point about this is that what we're looking at right now is a very small percentage of overall market capacity here in terms of growth and where this market is going. And I still think this may be highly underreported. And the only reason is because a lot of technology, just like in mobile when we first rolled out with the iPhone, so many people did not realize what it could mean to computing. They just thought it was a new telephone and maybe a new thing to do text messaging because the BlackBerry had pretty much owned that market. The evolution of what we have seen in mobile computing and mobile gaming, etc., over the past decade, this of course changes everything. And if you think about it, we dropped this right here actually it was last week, we dropped this show, this game showcase calendar. This was all May 24th, that was the PlayStation showcase. Then came MetaQuest, which they just dropped. Now you've got Worldwide Developer Conference coming on June 5th, Summer Game Fest coming in right behind it. And then of course, Xbox and Ubisoft Forward's event. All of this, guys, is a timed release for a reason, and that is everybody understands, one, how important this fall will be, not only to investing, recovering out of a potential recession into early next year, but also into a retail market that may be very underserved because of potential challenges in the consumer market. That would be a problem that I see going forward. All right, so where does this all take us? The narrative that we've been talking about here on this channel for a few weeks and researching for years has been the idea that AR/VR at some point will make its way to blockchain. Now the question is what projects? What projects will benefit from this? What projects could play out into this? Much like gaming kind of consumed that last little run we saw in September and October of 2021. Remember, all you guys were seeing these massive runs in a lot of these degen tokens. Well, I think we might be in a space right now. First of all, I'm going to say this full disclosure. Don't invest in any of these. This is about as degen as it's going to get. And the reason I say this is we've invested into a lot of these tokens primarily because we've been studying this market so closely. So just be aware of that, full disclosure on that kind of scenario. So who are they? Well, let's jump over to first Wilder World. Wilder World is one of the ones that we think is most likely the number one play right now with not only their advancements, but also kind of what they're doing. Now, there are some things going on with Wild, the token, that as a good study of blockchain, you should always be aware of. So do your research, understand what you're getting into if you do decide to go on any of these kind of tokens. Again, not financial advice on any of these things. The other one you have to be looking out for, this isn't a token, but I'm just looking at other applications that are potentially using AR. This, of course, is Cryptoys, who, by the way, is not a client of ours. They don't pay us to put this on here. We do this because we're interested in the space. Who are the players that are making things happen, and do they have the wherewithal to be able to take it to the next level? That's what I'm watching for every day. Our research team, we're watching these kind of things. Because those little golden nuggets, those are the things that make titans in this industry. So if you find them early, you'll be in luck, and hopefully you'll get a chance to ride the wave. Here was Will Reinrob. We've had Will on before, talking about their test flight, and you kind of saw a little bit there just on what they're doing with the AR application within their app there with Cryptoys. So pretty cool stuff. Further into this, let's go further into this. All right, big news. This was the Tama Army. This just shows you that we're seeing meme coins starting to make their way into, guess where, guys? Rocket Doge is in the iOS ecosystem. Something is changing right now. I feel like we are maybe at the genesis of possibly a new frontier of how mobile, Apple, Samsung, all the players, Google included, will start to move into this space, and we'll see a lot of integrations from Web3. Netvrk is another one that we're watching very heavily. This, of course, we put out quite some time ago, actually, May 31st. Netvrk is another target we're looking at. We like this one. We should follow them. What are we doing not following these guys? That's another one I'm watching. I'll show you some charts here in a minute. RFOX, of course, we've had on the channel many times. Ben, we're going to try to get these guys on the show next week after the event to see mainly what this and how it affects their roadmaps going forward, because a lot of the drops that we'll hear on Monday could very well set the tone for the future of AR, VR, especially in blockchain. So a lot of these things. So RFOX is another one that's in our group. Star Atlas, we're going to have Star Atlas on the show next week, so be on the watch for that. We'll have Wagner on. He'll be able to break this down. Star Atlas already in this play. Like a lot of that. Highstreet's another one that's in the group. I'm going to play this. There's probably some sound here. Let me mute that down. But this is Highstreet also coming into it. This is another one that we're tracking that's playing in the market as well. Let's get into this one. If you guys have not followed Affyn, this essentially I'm looking at what you're seeing right now is Google Maps. All right, that's Google Maps. So imagine a metaverse layer that is integrating into Google Maps. Do you see how much technology is being integrated here? And we have not even scratched the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg as to how it's going to be implemented and used in real case gaming, applications, productivity, business use cases. All these things are yet to come, because what are we needing? We need devices. You got to have the interface. The interface of the mobile device changed the world forever. Will the interface of the VR AR device and glasses, these headset units, possibly to a holographic, element in the future, change the future of how humans interface with technology? All of that is about to, I think, maybe take its first step going forward. Also, another one is Over. This is one we also track heavily. We'll probably put this one in our CPI. We're already tracking Wilder World now in the Power Index. These may be short-lived. We'll see how this goes with sentiment. But right now, Over is another one that plans of integrating on Apple's latest products. Basically, what they said in this press release was, doesn't matter what Apple does, whatever they roll out, we're going to be part of it and start building on it. And I think that's the key here. Don't forget, Nike and EA just also launched another partnership. What does that mean? Nike Virtual Studios and EA Sports have announced a partnership now to integrate Swoosh NFT into future EA games. This will be huge in AR, VR. And timing? Coincidental? Not a chance. This is all based on what is happening and has been happening in Silicon Valley for quite some time, probably for the last 18 to 24 months. Developers talk. Executives talk. Everybody understands where the future of the roadmaps go. Everybody's centering in on this one time zone, and that is the summer of 2023. We may remember that as the one to not forget. All right, we've got a lot of questions coming in. We'll get to those. I want to show you a few charts. And I also want to give you guys a quick peek at the VR index that we've created. This will most likely find its way over into our, let's go full screen on that real quick. We'll probably, this will find its way into our CPI, so you'll get a chance. So just, take a screenshot real quickly, and you guys could kind of replace that. Maybe what I'll do is I'll put a share link so you can at least get this list. But I've got them right now based on performance. You've got VR, of course, running at the top right there at 13. We're not invested in that one. High, I'm not invested in it, but at 6. Sensorium, here's Wild coming in strong. This one we're invested in, and we're playing this one very tightly. This is on the 4-hour right now. So this has a lot of potential liquidity issues. It's also a little difficult to get to if you want to play this one. This is one to watch. Render, you guys already know my position on Render. This one is one we've watched for quite some time, and we like it. It's all over the map. But recently been on this nice little run right here. RFOX is another one that we're jumped on. Obviously, great numbers in a very short period of time right here on the 4-hour, up from around almost 0.0009 to an 11. This could go big, and I won't go into the big charts on this as to their all-time, but there's some potential gains here that I think are interesting. Over also up slightly on this last little run. We'll probably see some volatility over the weekend on all of these. We're kind of playing on a razor's edge right now with these because this is still super, super degen and super early, all based on what is happening with Meta and Apple. And I think now that we've got two horses in the race, I think Apple and Meta are in for a very interesting time over the next 5 years. And it does mean there's going to be a lot of projects, gaming projects, blockchain projects, VR, AR experiences, entertainment, you name it. we're going to have a chance to start to see NFTs explode into a new era in the future. Forget what you've seen and done within the mobile side of things. This is all getting ready to move forward. Watch the market cap right here on Wilder World. Just keep an eye on that. This is the 1 year. You can kind of see it's at an all-time high on the 1 year at almost 113 million. Look at how fast this has moved. It was at 61 million market cap right here on May 11th. Right there, guys. Literally in 20 days, we've gone from 60 million to 110 million in market cap. So very interesting stuff. What was another one we wanted to look at over here? Netvrk, good things here. Circulating supply running at about 51%. You can kind of see some of the marketing or market options that you've got there trading right now. Pretty good, not bad. At 13 cents. Another one we wanted to look at, RFOX, of course, you saw the numbers there. Let's look at the overview on this one. And let's go to the 1 month. You can kind of see this numbers right here is where we're playing this market. But man, what a great build this was right here on RFOX. And I don't know that these are done because it will all depend on what happens Monday as to whether or not, and also the roadmap, because these guys are probably getting the information from Apple about the same time. Developers are getting updates. Worldwide Developer Conference, they'll start to get a lot of feeds from Apple as to what you'll need to do to build on these platforms. And that, I think, is going to be the real scenario that plays into this. Here's over coming out right here. This is the 7-day. It kind of capped in here. This is on the price. Dropped back down and then came right back up to 62. So if you were jumping in at that 53, like what we were talking about, then you've had a nice little run on over. All right, let's get into the, we got a, do we have a poll today? Okay, let's get into the poll real quick, and then we'll take a few questions over here. All right, here we go. Best play for Monday. Apple running at 29. People like the VR AR crypto tokens, and none. Crash is coming at the board. Kind of split audience on this. Meta a little bit on the slow side. So good to see that at least you guys are still degenning a little bit. I mean, listen, this is a fun space. You want to have fun, and I look at it that way when I'm investing. It's a small part of our portfolio that I feel is completely losable. I'm willing to go all the way to zero on these kind of things because to me, it's entertainment and it's learning about how these companies, projects will be integrating into the future of technology. And sometimes, like in the VC world, you have to bet on a lot of these to be able to get one unicorn. So very similar investment strategies, stuff I've done for years and years. All right, yes, we are going to have, Jen, thank you. We kind of, I don't know, should we go? I'm going to go to the queue. Yeah. All right. So we got a couple of things coming in. All right. What do we got here? Jen Smith says, are we watching the Apple event together with PBN? We were considering that. And hopefully we don't go lose. We're in the middle of a big thunderstorm here right now, guys. So hopefully we're still streaming. But maybe, yes, it's a possibility. We will definitely do a follow-up on 3 o'clock on Monday to cover what happened at the event. These events are a little bit boring. It's not like an FOMC where you're kind of on the edge of your seat, but there could be some big drops, so be aware of it. So we'll do a full recap. Our team is all over it. Cats and Good, Coffee, Crypto Stevo. Vulcan Forge is in there, but you're right, high market cap, would agree. Jeff Frise says, hopefully the Apple event blows our minds. I mean, this is what's up against. They're up against some stiff competition with what Meta is doing right now. Don't overlook Seek. I'm in Seek right now, even though I feel like it's a little bit less of an opportunity, but I am playing it just because I feel like it's one that needs to be looked at there. We'll interview Short Apple on Monday. I don't know that I would take that as a risk right now. They could drop something mind-blowing. And I don't know if I would say it's a 50-50. I feel like it's a better than 50% chance that they're going to come to market with something pretty amazing. I wonder if this is more put your money where your mouth is, AI, cryptos, VR, metaverse. Yeah, I think so. I mean, right now that's what we're doing. We need a Mario game level disruption for VR. I totally agree. More VR games. That's the beauty of this. That's the beauty of this, guys. You're catching these things in early stage. That's the beauty of crypto in general, but even more so when you look at these kinds of veins, VR, oh man, this could be pretty amazing. Is Solana, is the phone still legit? We're going to have the expert on next week, and that is Mr. James coming over from Invest Answers, I would say one of the best analysts on Solana and its future. So we'll talk to them next week. We have a lot lined up for next week. A lot of VR AR guys, Solana be on. We've got tons happening, so don't miss. Make sure and subscribe and hit the like button right now, because it is one of the ways that we get feedback from you guys. Do you like these deep dives, looking at these narratives, trying to understand where the opportunities are, looking at the tech that underlies it, and then trying to figure out the strategy? Because it really, at the end of the day, it's a guessing game of how technology is going to move, just like you do in stocks. What's going to be up next for the companies that move on it? Thoughts on MetaHero? They're in our group. MetaHero is in there. We may have them on also. We're talking with them right now. Mobius says, nobody wants VR or AR, get over it, go outside. That's what they told me about the touchscreen on the mobile devices in 2007. Nobody wants this. The BlackBerry's fine. It's good enough. Can't wait for Google to drop the new Pixel Web 3 phone. That will be a big one as well. And all of that is dApps built on Hedera. We just had Hedera on today. We recorded a nice video, and we talked to the Hedera team about this, of where this is going, their Google partnership a little bit, but really around, watch the video. It's going to come out this weekend. It's a nice one on Swirl Labs. Check it out. I don't understand why people love Apple so much, everything they say and do. Listen, John, it has been ingrained into our brains for the last 20 years. And, when you have a master like Steve Jobs that was I think, one of the greatest engineers of our time for social engineering, taking physical construct and creating a mindset and a creative layer around it to apply to it, it exploded what we know in technology, changed everything. And we may be facing that very thing. You apply this with AI and what's happening in the next few years with that, along with AR, VR, I think we are ready for a technology leap forward like we did in 2007, like we did in 1996 with the internet. These have been massive leaps forward. Monday may be our first step into a new frontier. All right, you guys check it out. If you're not already following us on Twitter, make sure and do that. You can catch me at Paul Barron, very easy. And if you're not in our Diamond Circle, make sure and jump in. We have a really cool thing going on right now on the Diamond Circle. And I'm going to just jump over there to it because we're doing a bunch of giveaways this month. If you are in our CPI membership or our mastermind, you're already eligible for these. But we're giving away Bitcoin. It's like $10,000 in prizes and tokens. So Bitcoin in June, Ethereum in July, and August they're doing Solana. We got a Solana phone. We got some Crypto Chick NFTs. We got a wine hour with me. We're going to be doing that via Zoom with 10 members, all for those who are winning. So all you have to do is be a part of the CPI or part of the mastermind. But anyway, get in there, and we'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.